Over the next few weeks, I hope to bring you some insight into the federal election campaign 2007. Well, there's been a lot of speculation this week about when the election will be held. This morning, the Governor-General, Sir Michael Jeffrey, arrives back in the nation's capital, and there's great speculation about whether the Prime Minister will stay in Canberra this weekend, whether he'll come back to Kirribilli House, and I'd imagine people will be following him around to see whether he does what is normal under the convention. That is, visit the Governor-General, usually on a Sunday morning, have a cup of tea with him, and ask him to dissolve the House of Representatives and half of the Senate for a general election. I would say at this stage it's obviously going to be that last weekend in November. Any further than that, he's sort of moving into the Christmas period. There has been some speculation this week about whether he would defer the election for another couple of weeks to allow the House to resume to put a health bill through to attempt to differentiate the health policies between the Coalition and the Labor Party. That's absolutely fraught with danger for the government. Every day that they spend in Parliament is another day that they can make a mistake or a gaffe and lose any election momentum going into the campaign. Labor hasn't been without its problems this week. The Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister, Robbie McClellan, made a speech earlier this week where he referred to the federal platform position of the Labor Party being against the death penalty, in particular in reference to the Bali bombers who are on death row at the moment as we speak, and their execution is subject to a ruling by the Indonesian courts which may knock out the death penalty in Indonesia. That's not particularly something that the leader of the opposition wanted to be discussed at this stage, so he basically publicly contradicted the Shadow Foreign Minister. So that was a bit of a gaffe for them. There's been a lot of focus on the polls over the last few weeks. There is a definite trend in the polls to Labor. It's a big spread and it's been there for a while. It's bumped a little bit. It came back to the government slightly, but it's gone back out to Labor. My personal view is that those polls are potentially soft. The Australian electorate are far more intelligent than I think most people, and particular politicians, give them credit for. They know that they can use polls to send a message to a government. What we really need to look at is to what degree people are undecided and to what extent people will consider changing their votes during the election campaign. Well, during the 2004 election, it was a fairly even spread in terms of Labor and coalition voters who considered changing their vote. It was around 28% actually polled said that they would consider changing their vote during the election campaign. So that's pretty high, and that's a bit of a worry for both parties because it introduces a great level of volatility. I don't think this result's a lay down misère. There are commentators and people on the Labor side who think that the spread's too big at this stage of the campaign and that it's going to be difficult for the government and the Prime Minister to draw that back. I think the poll will narrow during the campaign, and the one thing that is certain is that John Howard is a very clever campaigner and he will campaign in the right seats. He knows where he needs to target. They have a massive surplus, they have a massive budget surplus, and he's going to know where to spend the money. He does. He does. He has the ability to have a massive promotional campaign, TV campaign, which we've seen blitzing the airwaves for the last couple of months now. They would hope that would continue, as long as they could. But of course, once the election's called, that government advertising has to stop. But over and above that, as I said, a $17 billion budget surplus. There's a lot of money for the government to play with there. Oh, it's everything. You have the authority of the office. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister. He has many resources at his fingertips, and people will listen to what he says, and he will get a lot of airtime.